as a starting point, we will welcome Cédric Villani on stage. So Cédric is a podcaster. He's an ex-libre. He's also a mathematician, film medals, and ex-deputy. Cédric, the floor is yours.
Chers amis, c'est un plaisir. On y va en français ou préférez en anglais? English, please. Who is against English? Ok. En français, là, on est mal barré. Là. Leïla, c'est toi qui décides.
I'd say just so we can respect the foreigners here, let's switch to English. Everyone was aware that would be in English today.
Okay. Thank you, Leïla, for deciding.
About
Important is about the political process. And friends, we have two good goddesses here today to help us. Two very famous songs from the classical rock pop repertoire, Lucy from Beatles and Leïla from Eric Clapton. Friends, it's my pleasure to open this great day of conference on the invitation of our friend Alex Zapolski. And here I have, as you said, Alex, my hat of a member of the Academy of Sciences here, and who devoted part of my career to mathematics and sciences in general. Also, I had a number of hats in my career. As you mentioned, I was in Parliament, which was an opportunity to see very concretely in the battleground that algorithm and science, when it comes to public domain, is a lot about politics and much more than I expected. But also, I was, for years, I was sitting on the scientific board of the European Commission. I'm currently president of the Fondation de l'écologie politique. And most importantly for this conference, I was in charge of the parliamentary report provided to the government in 2018, which was the start of the first national AI strategy in France. First national strategy from 2018 to 2023. And this was an amazing experience for me, and the opportunity to see how much AI was much more than just algorithm. And in the middle of the 2010s, there was a big change that algorithm became an extremely political subject. Some may argue, of course, that it had been political for already decades, at least from Second World War. But in the 2010s, like around 2015, things got a change. First, it was 2 or 3 years after the amazing discovery by the public community at large in research in AI that neural networks did work, something that they did not believe, and what revealed to them in that famous competition of ImageNet won by Alex Krzyzewski in 2012. And between 2012 and 2015, the community had time to adjust, adapt, and algorithms made amazing progress so that by 2015, there was real sound impact in text recognition, in medical diagnosis, etc., etc. And of course, also in some very critical national issues, national security issues, and so on. And so AI was also becoming a geopolitical subject. But also it was the time of the Cambridge Analytica scandal for the Brexit. And this was the time at which DeepMind solved this important problem about protein folding, which just a few months ago won the Nobel Prize to Demis Hassabis. It was the time of the publication of the book by Cathy O'Neill, Weapons of Math Destruction, showing by a number of examples, very well documented, how artificial intelligence, done either with bad intentions or with non-rigorous process, was leading to catastrophe, and really documenting it very precisely. And also it was the time at which people were starting to get aware of the environmental impact of artificial intelligence. Before that, it was not really a subject. But now, around 2015, the progress, exponential progress of consumption, of use of resources and energy was becoming quite an issue. And of course, maybe the most important, because of that super-duper rise of neural networks, people were discovering that the most important thing to get your AI done with the current techniques was to have big data sets, enormous data sets. And data is something that is very political. The information that you select is a grid of the world that requires some politics, but also the way you access them. It's very large, it's based on some economic, there is some sociology in there, and so it was really becoming a political subject for those reasons. I've seen it, by the way, when you have a big information system to set up in some company, and you have to mix data coming from a number of issues, say, for instance, for a hospital, medical data, lab, and so on. There are some technical issues, and you can solve them. There are some legal issues, they may be more difficult, but you may solve them. But the political issue is the most tricky. Who will have access to the data? Who has access to change the data, etc., etc. And this is something that really came with this wave of data-based algorithms. So I mixed all this in the report. I have the wonderful multidisciplinary team to work with me, including a veteran of artificial intelligence, Mark Schonauer, and including specialists of defense, of philosophy, of legal issues, and so on. And we made a report which was trying to be comprehensive, including issues such as education, research, but also economy, the issue of jobs, and the issue of who does the AI, and in particular, the underrepresentation of women in the field, which is something that has to be tackled extremely seriously because it's a society issue that is weighing with a very heavy weight on us. And I chose, when it was the day of the public presentation, I wonder if it was not in this room, by the way, I think so. And in front of the, yes, you agree, and in front of the government, I chose 3 keywords which, after thinking of all the auditions I had seen and so on, thought to me were the 3 basic principles of any sensible and responsible national strategy for AI. And these were experimentation, sharing, and sovereignty. Experimentation, because the subject is extremely pragmatic, and since that 2012 day that I evoked, in which neural networks got the upper hand on the rest, nobody has really understood the core of the science behind this performance. And it's very much driven by experiments. And also because it's all about society experiments. In particular, when it comes to jobs, you never know how the algorithm will change jobs. And all the predictions made for years and years by big consultant cabinets on this have turned out to be wrong. So you have to experiment how it works out. And sharing, because it's all about sharing with this. Sharing the data, sharing the skills. All the projects which work are when specialists of algorithm go hand in hand on long-term trusted cooperations to devise something that works. And the third thing is about sovereignty. Sovereignty at the level of nations or supranations, that is, who we trust to help developing these algorithms, because if they are society changing, then you don't want them to be imposed on you by people that you don't trust. And also sovereignty in terms of the sharing of responsibilities, because what is the domain of mankind and what is of the domain of algorithm, and what it is that we want to keep for mankind and what is it that we accept to give to the algorithm. These 3 keywords, sharing, experimentation, and sovereignty, are certainly not the 3 keywords which are emerging in the current plans that we see coming out in America and other places on the world. You mentioned China, but of course, currently, the terrible political agenda in America has led it to be kind of the center of all our information net. And maybe if I had to choose 3 keywords for what we see unraveling, one would be bluff, one would be power, and one would be concentration. Now, bluff. Bluff actually is a keyword which has been in the subject of AI forever. Of course, very famous in the imitation game of Alan Turing, but even before, the very first time that there were tricks and talks about robot being able to do some mankind activities was in the beginning of the 19th century, when this automat, the automat Turk chess player by von Kempelen and Meisel, was going around in the courts of Europe and playing chess in front of the counts and the dukes and even Napoleon and so on. And of course, it was a trick. It was a man acting in place of the robot, etc., etc. But there was this, and already there was this issue. Who is doing it? Machine or man, and so on. Very famously, when Garry Kasparov lost against IBM in 1997, one of the things that obsessed him was, are these really a machine against me, or are there not some chess players really working out and playing, etc.? So the issues has always been there, but now it's here constantly. Every day there is somebody telling you some nonsense such as, oh, this AI is starting to cheat and escape its inventors. Oh, this AI is maybe someday will take over mankind, etc., etc. And this is, of course, organized in a way exactly as it was in the 19th century, or when IBM wanted this match against Kasparov, in a way to get attention, to get money, and to get the power ultimately. So you have to be extremely careful about this. Second keyword is power. And of course, power is here, unfortunately, kind of inherently in the current AI algorithms. Because of this issue of the size of data, my former collaborator, mathematician Yann Olivier, now working at the FAIR Artificial Intelligence Lab, worked on a project last year about comparing performance of various algorithms of neural networks in a number of situations and various algorithms. And what it is that one algorithm performs better than another. And the result of the study is the number one factor is size, which is depressing for a scientist. We used to think that you get the better algorithm if you find something clever or whatever. But in this category of algorithms, a very large middle algorithm, not great algorithm, but very large size, will do better than the very clever algorithm of smaller size, which of course is like a call to do more and more and increase and increase and increase. And of course, with large language models, with the LLMs, we've seen it even more than at previous levels. And the third, about concentration of power, this we have to be very careful, my friend. There is a general tendency for technology to be attracted to, of course, institutions which are wealthy, well-informed, and technology in general has natural tendency to increase inequalities. Within a certain category, because it can replace some human skill by some normalized algorithms, there may be some equalization within the same category. But from institution to institution, there is tendency to increase inequalities. Actually, a very sincere minister from some Asian country once, when I was working on that AI report, told me literally, AI is the greatest inequalizer ever. And we see here currently rising on other continents than Europe, kind of society projects which are extremely AI-file and extremely inequalitarian. And this we have to resist. Now, open source, I will argue, is maybe one of the purest forms that you can imagine to achieve the three keywords which we were promoting in the report. Experimentation, of course. The more open you are, the more you can do experimentation with process of debugging, with process of exploration, and in a subject which has been extremely pragmatic. Think of the number of discoveries which have been made because people pursued as outsiders when nobody wanted to do this way. Think of Geoff Hinton, Joshua Bengio, and Yann LeCun, of course, and so on. They were a very, very tiny minority convinced that artificial intelligence could be based on neural networks and would work. And if they had not been, stubbornly pursuing this, we would not be talking about all this now, probably. And think also, when it was discovered that GPUs were so efficient, founders of GPU, they wanted to do good gaming. They had no idea that it would be the cornerstone of this of the AI, and that NVIDIA would one day become the first capitalization in the world. And so, the more open you are, the more you will be able to experiment. Of course, the second keyword is sharing. And what can you think of which is more sharing than open source? And this we have to be extremely strong about the fact that AI that you want to insert in a project of society in which respect and equity are together, sharing it will be mandatory. And sovereignty. Now, you will say open source may be the contrary of sovereignty. I will argue, and you mentioned, Alex, in your talk, sovereignty. On the contrary, open source is a way to keep the sovereignty where it has to be, on the debate of society, for the people in general, and to avoid it to be confiscated by wealthy interests or by certain private interests which will make a point to curve it along their interests. One of the demonstrations, oh yes, I see, I will go to conclusion. Just a couple of minutes, but if somebody wanted to prove that LLMs is very much a political issue, there was the demonstration by Stella Assange, the wife of Julian Assange, when she publicly showed the result of asking an LLM about the CIA plot to assassinate Julian Assange. And she was asking to the French Mistral, and the French Mistral was replying a very detailed answer with references, sources, etc. about that CIA plot, which is something which has been attested. And asking Google Gemini, the answer was, I'm not aware of anything. And you see here how much politics there is. Now, 3 bullet points that I will give in your minds for the rest of discussion. One key topic, of course, for open source to come is what is open source of an AI. If data is so important, then of course, if you just give the algorithm and nothing about the data set, etc., you're not giving the essential. You're giving just the tip of the iceberg. So definition is so very important, and be careful. Even if the set is public, but you're not allowed to use it, then it's not open. Open source is just the idea that you can use the tool to be part of some big construction together. The second, the role of Europe. France, in the time in which there is accumulation of wealth and power in other continents, if Europe does not unite, we can as well just pack and leave. We need strong, very strong Europe for this subject, as for other subjects we believe in, such as ecology and so on. We need strong political Europe, we need strong European industry, and the issue of the hardware may be even more difficult than the issue of the software. And the third thing is about ecology. Now, AI, currently as it is developing, unfortunately, is an enemy of ecological transition. Because there is so much being built, because all the big international players, they have abandoned their climate targets. It was even Eric Schmidt was even saying a few months ago, let's forget about the Paris Agreement and let's focus everything on building a super AI which will save us. Now, friends, to imagine that AI will bring back serenity to the world is, to say the least, extraordinarily naive when we see the amount of chaos that it brings in public debate. So we need to impose ecology very strong and technology very strong, and we should be funding ecology at least 10 times what it is currently around the world. Now, open source also has its role to play here. Why? If all the private actors are competing against each other, each of them developing their AI, each of them developing all their databases and so on, then we're heading for multiplication of the imprint, ecological imprint. If there are a few shared open projects, very large, putting together the resources, then mathematically, if you allow, this will be a reduction of the imprint and a little bit of the sobriety that eventually we should be heading for. Thank you, and great debates, my friend.
Thank you, Cédric. See you soon. Avec plaisir.